Chasin the Racin, powered by Colchester Kawasaki. Part of the Global Moto Group, we supply new Aprilia, Moto Guzzi, Vespa, Royal Enfield, Kawasaki, Sim, Mutt and Benelli motorcycles.
3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasin the Racin.
I am joined on the co-host element with the delicious, yet mysterious. I've said that twice now in 2 shows. You are very mysterious. I love it. The Joe Akroyd.
What you see is what you get, mate.
I love it. And I tell you what, I'm going to dob you straight in at Joe. I'm going to let you introduce the guest because he is an ultimate fanboy. He's driven 5 hours to come down and meet you. He's got a perseverance side.
I have. It's pathetic, isn't it? It's pathetic.
You're going a little. He's going a little ready. I love it.
Yeah,
so,
well, I have, yeah. But we're joined by the one and only John Hopkins.
Oh, thank you guys. It's great to be here, and it's finally good to be on this show, and looking forward to it.
Mate, yeah. No, it is a bit embarrassing, really, but...
a bit. You're going a bit red. I love it, Joe.
It's the childhood. The childhood, once you're tuning into MotoGP and you've got your riders, haven't you, when you're 12 or 13 years old and you're following people, and that was...
Same. I had the same growing up. I had my heroes that I just, ultimately... just was infatuated with, and it's a shame though, because there's some, like, the saying, don't meet your heroes, and
don't let me down.
Trust me, what you see is what you get with me, and a few experiences throughout my life of fans that I grew up with, and people that I obviously very much looked up to, really let me down in person.
Really?
Even at a young age. It was funny. This is actually, we'll go straight into the stories, but I had a funny story with this one. Growing up, I was all motocross, so I grew up racing motocross in California, and that was the main thing I did, and down in Southern California is kind of the mecca for supercross and motocross stars, and they all live down there. And track I used to ride at, supercross, and top level motocross riders were always there riding and practicing on the same days. And one of them that I super, he wasn't my favorite, but I really looked up to him. He was like a hero of mine, Ryan Hughes. And he was there one day, and he was riding, and I was always kind of a little bit shy as a kid, and I was a little bit reserved in that, which I grew out of, obviously, in my later years.
Amazing how people change.
Yeah, exactly. But I was quite, shy and introvert a little bit, and I was always afraid to go up to him. But all the kids, they'd always run up and, can I have your jersey? Can I have your gloves? Can I have this and that at the end of the day? And I always, hung back and it'd be quite easy on that. But one of the days I finally plucked up the courage. I was like, all right, I'm going to go ask him for a jersey. I'm going to go ask. And so I go up and ask him for a jersey. And I don't know if it was the day or what the fuck it was. I don't know what the hell was going on, but he was just absolutely just flipped out on me. Pissed off. Oh, you fucking kids, what is with you kids? You always wanted free stuff, this and that. And
what age were you at this point?
I was only 7 years old at this time, 6, 7 years old, and I absolutely just fell into tears. I was crying. I went running back, and my dad was a lovely guy, and he was full British, Cockney accent, he was born and raised and lived in London obviously his whole life, and he went up and he just lashed into Hughes, just absolute, what the fuck is wrong with you? Just really laid into him, and he was oh, sorry. And anyways, long story, I was super disappointed in that. Fast forward 20 years, right? So we go to Anaheim Supercross, and I've always gone to Anaheim, which is first Supercross of the year. I've gone ever since I was 4 years old, 5, 6, 7, all the way up until I was racing MotoGP.
Is it spectating?
Yeah, spectating at the Supercross, and you go in, they had the knothole suite, which is the celebrity suite where, they get celebrities and racers, and I used to be joined with Nicky Hayden, Rossi would come, and Biaggi, and everyone would always come out for the first Supercross race. And
it makes it sound like a pub crawl with his local mates. Yeah, we just got the fellas, went down for a couple of pints, you know what I mean? Yeah. Me and Joe were
And we're in this suite, and it's funny, and I had seen Hughes at a few events like prior to this, and I never really actually said anything. And finally, like, I was there, and he was sat right in front of me, and finally I just plucked up the courage, and I said, you know what? I said, I got to talk to you. I got to say something. Honestly, I don't know if I should be thanking you or upset at you, but you are the reason why I never, ever get upset at a fan for wanting a picture, autograph, no matter at what time, what awkward moment, or whatever. But you are the reason why I will always make time for my fans. And he goes, oh, what are you talking about? What do you mean?
He didn't remember.
And then I told him, and he was like, we actually became like quite cool and had loads of like.
Because you shit scared of your dad. That's
yeah,
exactly. Your dad's not with you, John, is he?
Yeah, but he actually did remember it, and he was like, oh, I had such a bad day, and I was having a hard time in the championship that year. And I said, still, that's no excuse.
Yeah,
like,
not a kid, is it? It's, yeah.
And yeah, that was like what the main, like, that was a huge point in my life. Like, no matter what, I always said from that point forward, like, I will always make time for my fans, like, at whatever time. I mean, they're the ones that they are the reason why we get to do what we do. You know, at the end of the day, that's the ones paying the bills. That's what's, keeping the entertainment and sponsors happy, and that's why we get paid.
It's what makes it a sport, isn't it?
Did any part of you want to stop racing? When that incident happened at 7, you know what I mean? You thought, well, why do I want to be a bike racer? That must have been really impacting that.
Yeah, to be fair though, it almost gave me more drive and more motivation, because I knew I could be better than that, a better person than that, and it almost just gave me that more drive and motivation. But I mean, it was a letdown in terms of actually but and then I also met like other fans and heroes like Rick Johnson, who was like my ultimate like hero at the time. Bad Boy, which is funny. I just watched it. They had a thing with Josh Brooks, and he's got like the Bad Boy helmet and stuff like that. It was funny. Rick Johnson, I've got poses of me like as a kid at 5 years old doing like a Rick Johnson like gun salute that he used to do, a no-handed like gun salute. And I've met him multiple times, and it was funny. I was actually with him this winter, and actually showed him the photo of me at 5 years old with like my like 6 or 7 trophies that I had behind me, like doing like the little like gun salute, and he loved it. But yeah, and he was a lovely guy, super, super nice. And even when I met him at a young age, he was always super nice. And it's those people that kept me drived and motivated to obviously continue and go where I did.
Yeah. I must ask, did you just mention that your dad's from England?
Yeah. So I am the only person in my family, 3 older sisters, my mom, my dad, everyone. I am the only person in my family born in America. They were all born in UK.
Because your hopper thing that was on your leathers was half English, half the Union Jack and half the
so I'm dual
American
citizen
flag, wasn't it? Yeah.
So I've got my British passport and my American passport. So and it's crazy because at this point in my life, I've actually spent more time in the UK now than living in the UK than I have done living in the States now.
Are you based over here now? Then?
Because
I know you moved over here for BSB, didn't you?
And then I've got a house, and then my now ex-wife, we've got had a house in Portsmouth, which my kids now live in, and so I mean even in my Grand Prix career, I bought a house up in the Midlands, like towards, like, I don't know, 2006, I had bought a house, and then spent considerable amount of time, like during the seasons here in the UK throughout.
So that's all the Aussies end up in the Midlands, don't they? All end up near Mallory Park. Were you anywhere near Mallory?
That's where. Well, I was actually right in between. I was right in between Donington and Birmingham, actually. So I was in Ashby de la Zouch. And that was just the place to be. And I had known a lot of people from that area at the time. And I was actually my manager. He was part of my management company. Jamie Dobb, the former world motocross champion. He and I knew him quite well, and we did quite a bit of motocross. So I was only a few miles from where he was.
Well, what took your parents to America then? Was your dad I was about to say a peddler there, but like a motocross rider, or was he?
So he raced when he was a youngster. He actually raced. He did the Isle of Man TT.
He's a proper
when
bloke.
He was young.
He's a proper bloke. No wonder you are who you are. Proper bloke. Came out the right ball bag.
He raced out of the. He raced the Isle of Man, but he was too young, and he ended up winning the junior TT one time. But then he got disqualified because he was like 2 or 3 years younger than what he was supposed to be. He lied about his age
what year was that in the 60s? 60s, 70s?
Yeah, like 60s.
There were some jealous people there, weren't there? Like that guy. Someone pulled up his passport. What? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he got busted for that. And then he had actually just right around that time met my mom, and unfortunately, my mom. And then they ended up having their first kid, so my mom took him away from racing, and
these are your 2 older sisters?
Yeah, 2 older sisters, and 3 in total. But they ended up. I don't know. My mom's mom ended up moving out to America first because she had met an American man, and they moved out, and they obviously went and visited, and they loved it, and so my mom and dad finally just said, let's go, fuck it, let's go, let's make our way out there, and so they did, and obviously had me. I was their golden ticket, so I was their green card and passport out, and that was it. Like,
that was a plan. Like, like most kids grow up in general thinking I'm the mistake. He's like, no, I'm the golden ticket. Like, you know what I mean? I'm the reason my parents are international.
Yeah, exactly. So
I made the 2 passport rule.
Who was your favourite? John. 100% John.
No, but if you only knew, Jesus. My sisters resented me, probably still do. But they still do. But obviously being the only boy, but every single weekend from the time I was born, we were out in the deserts of California, because you've got hundreds and thousands of square miles of just deserts that you can ride in, just non-stop.
Nobody gets involved in like exactly. Do over here, exactly. Walkers and ramblers and people on horses and all.
British people, British
horrendous, isn't it?
So we were every single weekend we were camping at the deserts in California and riding motocross bikes and so forth. So I first started riding when I was 2 years old, and then that was it. Just growing up, just started riding nonstop, and then we went and visited. We went and watched a family friend, my dad's friend that was racing at a local track in Los Angeles called Ascot at the time. No longer there, sadly, but I ended up watching the kids go out on the little PW50s. Instantly, told my parents, well, why can't I do that? And so instantly, my dad actually went to a junkyard. So he ended up, because my dad was a lorry driver and my mom was secretary. So we didn't have much money, but we ended up going to a junkyard and building my first 50 from a complete junkyard. They ended up being some form of a Honda little mini trail, and we pulled it out, went to our first race, pulled it out, and everyone, even the security guards, laughed at us. They were like, "Oh, come on, you're not racing that thing, are you?" And we're like, "Yeah, I didn't know I'm any different. I was fucking buzzing. I was like, yeah, I'm ready to race." And anyways,
you got out the car with your helmet on.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your problem?
I was in jeans and I didn't even have a jersey or anything at the time, and they got a helmet for me. And anyways, I ended up getting 8th out of 24 riders, and that was it. My dad came up with the plan. He's like, "All right, we got to go see," because my nan was the one with the money saved up, my grandma. So we went to grandma that week.
Is that your mother's side or your father's side?
Yeah. It was my mother's side.
Oh, there we go. You're guaranteed a ticket at that point. So me little boy.
We went to grandma.
Comb your hair, get you looking all smart. Right, go ask grandma for the money for the bike.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what we did.
Do that little smile, John.
And so what we did is actually invited her to the next week's race.
Yeah.
Rode the same bike. Following week, Grandma came out. I ended up doing a little bit better as well, like 6th, 7th or something
It was
like
contract
that.
time.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
contract time.
And that was it, man. We can't have him riding that bike. We need to why can't you get, oh, well. And then boom, we were at the Yamaha dealership the next week buying a
Perfect.
brand new PW50. And
Just imagine how different your life would have been if your nan went, this is too quick. If she actually went, you know what I mean? Imagine if she went, whoa, I'm not a fan of this. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Get that boy a tennis racket or something.
You say that.
Yeah.
You know what I
But
mean?
by the sounds of it, if that had been the case, your dad would have found another
No,
ride.
they would have found. My dad. He knew how to make things work. Yeah, he would have found a way somehow. Like he was always like.
Yeah.
Your dad was going to beat
In
your
and out.
pews.
Yeah.
Your dad's committed. You know what I mean?
But literally from that point, like my family's money, their time, their life, everything basically revolved around my racing from literally that point forward. And obviously, within that year we were already traveling, to Florida, Punk City, Oklahoma, like the big American nationals, literally like, you think, it's funny, you get here in the UK, we're going to drive up to Knock Hill. It's such a long drive, like 6, 7, 8 hours, whatever. And, we're talking 7, 8 days of driving to get to some of those, like nonstop days of and it's
On a map, it doesn't look that far, does it?
Yeah. But I
Maybe
mean,
a day.
it's like you're talking like 50, 60 plus hours of driving, to get to some of those. And we were doing them like 3, 4 cross-country trips a year, doing all the motocross nationals in our old beat up Ford van that we had, our action van I used to call it.
Action van. For a different reason, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
That was later in life. It was action.
When John hit puberty, it changed.
Yeah,
massively.
exactly. Quickly change.
Was your dad ever the motocross dad?
Yes.
No.
Or were you always given
my dad? So that I had so many experiences with this, and that's another one that even now working with younger riders, and we've got an academy over in America that I'm working with a lot of younger riders. That was the biggest teaching lesson of my life, growing up around all those different motocross kids. There was a kid that I grew up racing with, and this kid was just unbelievable fast. He was the one kid that I literally just couldn't beat. I rarely ever beat this kid, and he was fast everywhere, and he was just always on it, and the dad was just always on top of him. You little pussy, super crazy
Savage
stuff at a very young age. And anyways, I ended up beating the kid, and in motocross you have the 2 motos, and I ended up beating the kid in the first moto. And the dad was absolutely laying in, you little pussy, you're going to let him beat you again on the start line for the second race. And the kid literally got off of his bike, kicked it over on the start line, literally kicked it over, walked off. That was it. Never saw the kid at a motocross race the rest of my life. And all that talent was gone. I mean, this kid was crazy talent. And
I hate it. I hate when you don't see it as much in road racing, do you? That's why the saying is what the motocross dad's saying. But whenever I see it, it's hard not to almost want to. There's a part of me that wants to go over and grab the dad.
Yeah. Well, my dad punched a rival's.
The dad.
Yeah, the dad.
Rival dad. Yeah.
The rival's dad for laying into
Speaking
his
to the
own
kid
kid.
like shit, yeah.
I mean, bad. Slapped him upside the head and was laying into him. And my dad actually fucking went and punched him and decked him.
Good man.
And really and my dad was known as, he always was nicest guy ever met. He was always working on everyone else's bikes, always mechanicking for everyone else, making sure everyone else made it, even all my rivals and so forth. And I was lucky at a young age, because the only time I ever got in trouble or I ever got yelled at was when coming off of a race. I was super pissed off. I mean, obviously, because I'd gotten beaten. I wasn't riding well, and I ended up being beaten by a guy I knew I shouldn't have been beat by. And I came off the track. I was super fucking pissed off. I came off and I ghost rode my bike into a
Just
tree.
jumped off the back of it.
And I just jumped off the back of it and ghost rode it into a tree, and I was like super pissed off. That was it. My dad came storming over. Literally, I'd never seen him so mad in my life. He literally came up, picked up the bike, took everything through, and this was at the first moto as well. And so, we still had the second moto to go. He came over, picked the bike up, threw it in the van, literally just threw all the shit in, said, right, you're done. No more. Threw it in the van. I was like crying. We ended up going home that day. And like, I was still in like the championship fight, but we went home.
That's
like,
a man of morals, that. Man of morals, man of principles, yeah.
Like, and that was the biggest like learning lesson and teaching moment in my life. Like from that moment forward, I was like, all right, I need to. Like,
what age were you there?
That was about like 8 or 9. Yeah, like 8 or 9. Yeah.
So you've had the life changing moment with like 7-year-olds, grabbing jersey, and then.
Yeah, no, those are the moments obviously as a kid that shape you.
At what point? Even that, it's mad. We haven't even we've gone from 7 to 40 at the moment. No, but your ghost riding bikes. You've already got your natural competitive nature, shall I say? You want to do well, but. Can you remember that definitive point of going, I want to win everything? When did that start for you? You know what I mean?
It was in my blood. It was in my DNA, like from the second I was born. Anything from my sisters to my friends, or whether it was BMXing, whether it was surfing, whether it was snowboarding, whether it was like anything. I always had to be the best.
You're that kid at sports day that is going to just put you in the fucking fence to win.
Picked up everything like super quick, and I just had that natural ability to really pick things up quick.
Yeah.
Apart from team sports, and it was crazy. My family made me. They actually forced me to do like all the school sports and the, American football and the baseball and I'd never got through fucking a week of like making the team or doing, and I would sometimes pick it up, but then I'd be like, nope, I want to go back to motorcycles. I want to do this. But it was always in my blood to win and like everything like that. But it was funny because it was at a national race. Like it was because my dad was always road racer, and obviously it's just it wasn't that big over there. So, and we only knew motocross, and that's all I knew at a young age. And then we ended up going to a really big national motocross. The biggest in America was the Punk City. And I was racing that. But at the same time, there was a go-kart track on the facility.
Aye.
And the go-kart track was actually hosting the American Championship for mini road racing. And so what they did is they ended up having like a little exhibition, obviously trying to get more motocross kids involved. So they did an exhibition.
What were they riding? What were they classed as?
YSR 50s. So they those were the little mini road race. They were like the Ovales of nowadays.
All right, that was what I was thinking. I was thinking, what were
little Yamaha YSR 50s. And they were having their national championship on the karting track at the same weekend. And so anyways, they had the exhibition, and they said, any 50s and 60s can come over and ride it and so forth. And they were going to do like an open class to event. And so my dad saw, and he was like, we'll go and
That's
do
a
it.
bit of him, really.
So he's like, oh, you should, just try it, see if you like it and stuff like that. And so I rode it, and I ended up having knobby tires, like from the motocross track. So I had my knobby tires, and I was going up against kids that were on PW 50s and 60s that were family or something of like they had older brothers or whatever, like racing in the road race, the mini road race, but they were on dirt track tires, which were far more suitable to the road kart circuit.
Because like flat track tires, they had round tires.
So they had round tires with groove, but it was far more. They were far better and far more grip than what...
They actually have a radius on them, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. There's some
safe.
like radius. But and still, though, I ended up I raced the 50, modified 50, and the 60cc class. And then I think it was every class, I lapped up to second place. I don't know why, I just took to it, like really, like, well, I was in my motocross gear as well. Like,
you see a lot of motocrossers do that. I think it's far easier to transition from motocross to road racing than it is road racing to motocross, isn't it? You see a lot of that.
I tell you what, that's a very good question, because I've never seen that. No, like a road racer going, you know what, I'll have a crack at motocross.
Well, they're all into the flat tracking now, aren't they? And they're getting used to that, but it's not motocross,
no,
and it's not at the level.
Motocross is so much. It's basically like, it's the same thing as like motorcycles to cars.
Yeah.
Like you can always get a motorcycle racer that can go and race cars.
Yeah.
But you'll never get the car driver to go race professional motorcycle racing, because there's so much technique involved when riding a motorcycle. And then that's even doubled again with the motocross, because the bikes and technique that it takes to ride a motocross bike. I mean, you almost have to like, you always have to predict and know and have that almost just natural instinctive feeling of what the bike's going to do. And that's something that's heightened in motocross, even more so than road racing. And so I think that's why it's only far easier for them to transition over.
And when you're 7, 8 years old, you're even more sort of, you've removed the fear factor, haven't you? Because you're not scared of that age.
Then it just, it was just something I instantly took to. And it was funny because funny enough, I was actually racing Roger Hayden, because the Hayden brothers were actually there at the mini road race. So Nicky Hayden was on a YSR 50 riding at the time with his older brother Tommy Hayden.
Yeah.
And then Roger Lee Hayden, the younger brother, was in my class on the 50s on the dirt track tires.
Who's nearest you in age then?
Roger. Because Nicky was always like 2 years older than I was.
Yeah.
And so Roger was actually in the class that I was racing in on like the dirt track tires.
And I'm going to ask the question that everyone's going to ask. Did you beat him?
Yeah, of course. I actually lapped him.
A lot of people listen to this podcast now going, let's just look through these, let's look through his history here too.
No. So I actually did lap him, but it was funny. So, my dad was always a talkative guy. He always loved chatting to people, and instantly like loads of people came up to my dad and was like, what the hell's going, like, where the hell does this kid come from? Like, we need to get him on one of our bikes. Like, and then, so they ended up meeting quite a few people from Southern California were there at the event.
Right.
And they were like, hey, like, we've got to get him on our bike. And so that was it. Like, literally, like the following, week or 2 weeks, once they finally made the drive back, I ended up testing a little YSR 50 for the first time, and ended up being in the wet the first time I rode it, at a local kart track in Southern California. And that was it. And I just started doing, any off weekend I had from motocross, I'd spend it YSR racing.
I was going to say, was that it for the end of motocross then? Or was that...
No, it was...
Was it the beginning of the end?
It was the beginning of the end, but I stuck with motocross, and then it kind of just started to transform as the bike started to get bigger, and I got onto the 80cc mini road race bikes. I started to actually enjoy that a little bit more, and then it was a little bit more complicated because my dad actually passed away when I was 12 years old.
Never.
Yeah.
And so what age was this? This moment on the tarmac. What age were you?
So it was 9 years old.
Right.
Was the 8, 9, like
jumping off onto the knobblies, onto the tarmac.
Yeah, that was like 8, 9 years old. 8 years old when I did that on the tarmac, and then 9 years old when I first started racing the YSR 50.
And you carried on with the motocross alongside with that.
Still, motocross was still like my main focus, and it was all the way up until I rode an RS 125 for the first time. So like I literally rode, and it was cool because my dad actually got to witness it because he was quite ill with lung cancer at the time, and I was only 12 years old. So he actually came to my first test of riding the RS 125, and it was at it was a large go-kart track, but like more of a car track, but they called it Streets of Willow. And it was still like pretty sick flat out on a up the front straightaway on a RS 125, and it was crazy. That was the moment that I literally transformed, and my kind of
the motocross bikes went in the garage.
It went strictly. I mean, I it's funny. I even put it in my book, but I literally, the first time I went up the front straightaway, I mean, I was at that age, 12 years old. I was, early puberty, but I literally got a boner going. I literally did, going up the front straightaway.
The most memorable boner in your life.
Yeah,
What page is that? What page is that? Well, there's a photo at page 137.
So I literally got so excited, like it turned me on in a way. I don't know, but it was funny.
Class.
But I literally, that was it. Like I was like, oh, I love this. Like, and then my kind of focus went a lot more into the road racing over those next few years, even though I still gained, kept up with the motocross and doing everything. My family did everything they could to keep me motocrossing and doing everything. My mom and my sister, the next oldest sister to me, because she was like my personal mechanic.
What was their drive to that? If because you lost your dad at 12, God love you.
Yeah.
That's a no family should go through that period. That's
but
massive. To keep that going.
Yeah, my mum was a saint, and she knew obviously the talent and everything. I'd already accumulated multiple championships by this point, and you could tell I already had quite a few sponsors and people that were helping me out, and they obviously saw the talent in what I had and how much I loved it. Like I said, my mom just did everything she could to keep me in it and keep me kind of focused into it. And
because I was going to say, I've read your book. So Chrissy had rung me after he'd listened to it. He used to love his audiobooks, didn't he? And he rung me after listening to it, and he says, "You've got to get Hopper's book. Get Hopper's book." So I'm not very good at reading. I'm a bit steady.
Trust me, I haven't read the book myself yet.
So I got the book, read it in about 3 days. My missus was amazed that I was reading, because I just don't read anything. I'm just terrible at it. So obviously, and a lot of the listeners or viewers are going to have done exactly the same. So we know kind of what's gone on the timeline. I'm a little bit fuzzy on it, but one thing that comes out in your book is like how amazing your mum was, and she passed away a couple of years ago, didn't she? Sadly.
Sadly.
Sorry about that.
No, thank you.
All the way through the book, everything goes back to your mum, doesn't it? And she sounds like one hell of a woman, because when your dad passed away, she kept going, didn't she?
Yeah, amazing. No, she kept in it, and she did everything. She started, she was working 2 jobs and did everything just to keep me into the racing. And it was funny, because she pulled my dad out of racing, obviously, like when they had their first kid, and she was like, "This is too dangerous, Roy," and I believe it was because of that. She never once took me away. She did everything she possibly could and more to keep me into racing.
Some woman.
And I mean, I'd already by this point had broken, 4, 5, 6 bones, at least, and casts, and God knows how many stitches and
you're a parent now, so you know what that's like when your little ones get hurt.
No, exactly. Yeah. No, it terrifies me. I hate it. Seeing them.
I've talked about it before that my little girl had crashed a little electric throttle bike, and she had a big one and smashed all her face up, and that was the first time. That same thing where you kind of have a moment, don't you? As a parent, you go, now I get what I've been putting them through.
Yeah.
All those years. You don't get it until you're a parent.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't get it.
Yeah, no, it's heartbreaking. You want to protect them and do everything you can to see them not ever get hurt. So, to see him putting himself through that or into that, it is scary. It is contradictory. And
yeah.
But I believe the whole reason why she never did anything to hold me back from it and only promoted me and motivated me and kept me going was because she did feel bad. I think because my dad obviously was talented and probably could have gone quite far in his life in motorcycle racing. So I think that's the reason why she was so determined, and obviously the amount I loved it and how much she wanted me to succeed. But my mom was super, super amazing. Her and my next oldest sister, they did everything. And then, it was at 15 where I had the option to either go, I had an option at that point to either go pro motocross with Team Green, which was it's kind of like an academy. So it's like an internship almost. They provide the bikes and, sometimes the travel, and they can get you to the races and so forth.
Just a little bit of structure.
Yeah, a little bit of structure and under a team kind of umbrella. But that lasts for, another year or two or blah, blah, blah. And the amount of kids that grow up wanting to be a supercross rider in America. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them, across America.
So big over there, isn't it? Supercross thing's massive.
And the finite amount that ever actually make it is quite small. Obviously, and so whereas in road racing it just came easy to me. I was one of only like 4 kids around America that were at my level at that time.
Never.
Yeah, it was me, Nicky Hayden, Ben Spees, and
any more legends you like to add to that? You know what I mean? It's just like,
and that was all that there really was at the time. And so I had the option, and then I also had like a $40,000 that they were offering me like $40,000 contract to go with Suzuki.
I wonder what the persuading aspect of that was.
At 15, I was like, I'll take that. But I mean, it was also a good moment for me because I obviously had to grow up at a really young age, like obviously losing my dad, I had to and I knew what my mom was putting into my racing and everything that they had done, over the years. And, Did
you ever have a moment where you thought, actually, from your perspective, it must have crossed your mind that you thought, I'm actually going to knock this on the head? Or was that not a case for you?
No.
That's incredible. I'm not going to put the family through that. I'm not going to, I'm not going to put them any more stress. We've had fun, but it's.
You'd had a boner on an RS-125. He wasn't thinking about anything else about getting another one of those.
That's why I'm asking the question, because you know what I mean. That's a huge. No one in this world, and unfortunately, people do. Losing a family member is massive.
Yeah, and especially my dad. Like that was a tough one. Like so, I went through a really rebellious stage. Like and I don't think I grieved him properly. Like I just put it to the back of my mind, and racing was like my only kind of getaway. That was like my release was racing, and being on a motorcycle was like my only release. But I was very rebellious growing up. Like I always had and it's the exact same gene is in my eldest daughter right now, which
pushing back on everything.
Yeah, pushing back on everything and very manipulative. I always had my mom and my dad wrapped around my finger, and like it's just crazy how much my eldest daughter is like exactly the same. But
how old is she?
She's 9 now, and
you haven't even gotten the teens yet.
No. Yeah, exactly. But I was a rebellious kid. Like, and I was always I wanted to do the wrong thing.
Yeah. Do you think that was the start of the legend?
Yeah, well, 100%,
and all the stories, like,
and 100%. Like
that was the beginning.
I obviously always got a kick at doing the naughty thing, and I always went the other way than what was supposed to be the right way, and like I said, I was always quite rebellious, and then obviously losing my dad I went through a very those early teen years when he would have slapped me into line. There was no one, and like I said, I was very manipulative, so I always had my mom wrapped around my finger so I could get myself into a heap of trouble, and always managed to get away with it with my mum.
Cheeky smile, flutter your eyelids, and carry on. Yeah,
and I could get away with like a little bit of a hand slap, and and it was, it wasn't. I look back on it now, and I feel bad about it, obviously, for a lot of things I had done and manipulated, and stuff where I put her through a tough time as well, like with the friends I was hanging out with and the bad things I'd get up to and stuff like that.
Well, no, what I find very curious is we're talking about your passion was always going to drive you down that route. You weren't going to pack it in. Obviously, your dad was such a strong point, but you're definitely not the character that's fearful of failure. But did that cross your mind? Like, it's a bit like, we're going to carry on the story. We're going to keep going down the race and we're going to keep this going. Did it cross your mind at any point going, what happens if this doesn't work?
To be fair, I never.
You know what I mean?
To be fair, though, it never crossed. Like from the literally the first time I raced a motorcycle at 4 or 5 years old, there was never any doubt in my mind that I wasn't going to be a professional motorcycle racer. And like I can honestly and seriously say that, like, there was never a moment in my life that I didn't say from 4 or 5 years old that I wasn't going to be a professional motorcycle racer. Like, even at the career days and the family, like, you know, the school, like, education. And I had a lot of teachers growing up that like said, like, really, like, were horrible and like, oh, you're never going to be anything, you know. And because I had to miss quite a bit of school with all the traveling that we did, like, throughout my whole childhood. And I had some horrible teachers that, like, You got any names of them? Yeah.
Look down the lens. Mrs. Miggett, you're a bitch.
Yeah, Mrs. Wills, my 6th grade teacher, was the biggest bitch.
I hope you're watching.
And I actually went back to that school and I tried to find her, but she had moved to fucking bumfuck, like, and it was when I was like making, you know, whatever, 4 or 5 million a year, and you know, it was like
pull up in a Porsche and just give her the bird.
And you know, I was at the height of my, you know, Suzuki GP career, and I wanted to go and find her and be like, yeah, motorcycles weren't going to get me anywhere, were they?
Yeah,
there's 100 grand. Get some manners.
But she obviously had moved, and it was funny because I went from the year before having the best teacher in my life, who was so amazingly supportive of me and my motorcycle and what I wanted, and because she knew and saw the passion and everything that I was putting into my racing and how passionate I was about it. And she completely was like supportive and like, and you know, was massively supportive in helping me, like, with that goal and that vision, and always follow your dream and this and that, to like, you're never going to make anything. Motorcycles are nothing. Like, you need to get, and it was right at the time that, like, it was the same year I lost my dad, and I just said, fuck it. Like, from that point forward, because I was always like you know, we with our grade system in America, A's and B's, and I was always like a straight A, B, like, at the height of I was always like a really
clever little shit then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, somewhat. But I always did really well in school, all my primary years, like super, super good in school. And it was I just literally did the bare minimum from that point forward, and just said, you know what, fuck, I don't need this. Like, and it was from that point that I literally did the absolute bare minimum in school from that point, and put even more focus into my racing.
Do you guys, am I right in thinking you like graduate high school, don't you, in America? So did you graduate? Or did you never bother with that?
My mom actually, she got, I feel bad for my mom about this, but I did, because I ended up obviously leaving school like 3 years before obviously you're meant to, but I did.
Is it 16 you leave school in America?
It's a bit older, isn't it?
18. Yeah. So you're supposed to do mandatory school until 18 in America.
And
that's
then
your senior year. Yeah. And then, but I left school at 16. I did homeschool, even though it was like, I literally just wrote words on a page, and then I, you know, every couple of weeks I'd have to go in to grade my own work. And so I'd give myself like you know, just enough, like, I was a bit smarter. I do like the B, C, like just enough so they wouldn't get suspicious.
Yeah. Did you ever give yourself any like dodgy, like, accreditations, like, that guy must try harder? Nah, let him make it stronger.
Yeah.
Pay attention in class. That'll get me out the woods a little bit. There you go.
But I'd literally do just enough where I like wouldn't get caught. But I literally was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 credits, because you have to go on amount of credits when I was 18. And I stopped entirely just to make a point. Like, I didn't want to actually graduate from high school, because like I said, from that teacher, I learned more traveling with my dad and traveling with my family, like cross country and maths and, you know, mileage and everything. I learned more in the van with my family
They used to do like songs as you're driving.
But they actively teaching you as well on the trip.
Exactly. Yeah, and they were always like good.
Having older sisters is good as well, isn't it? Because they're trying to work with you the whole time as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I learned more always, and traveling and cultures and different, because America's so big. You go cross country, it's like you're in a different country when you go back east or south and all of that, and experience all the different cultures and things and places and like all the like cool shit we'd go to and see in between. And I learned more doing that. So I just said, screw it. Like I'm not even going to graduate. Like I see no. And it was crazy because throughout my life, I ended up like having a bunch of friends, obviously, that went the school route and doing that. And I had all kinds of friends that did the whole 4 years of university and everything, getting the degree and the bachelor's degree and all of that. That 80% of them did 4 years of, did the whole high school, got 4 years university, bachelor degree, and then never ended up using their degree in their profession. They ended up going and selling motorcycles because they could sell motorcycles and make more money, and yet they're living hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt from university and so forth. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it wasn't my route, and it was more of a statement that I figured, I just packed it in and didn't. I only was like 2 credits away, and my mom was quite upset about that. But
mums are always upset about the education thing, aren't they?
Yeah,
mums,
And I just told her, I said no, like that. From that 6th grade teacher, that made me not want to actually graduate. I didn't see any relevance to doing it, and so and I'm very fortunate and blessed to be able to have made motorcycle racing my life and had the career that I had to also make a life in motorcycle racing even after my career. But
But I want to go back to 16-year-old John. Yeah, so you've left, you know what I mean? You thought, I want out. Like, where were you? You were still at home, with your mum and everything like that.
Yeah.
So was it a case of, were you getting enough sponsors to fund yourself? Were you thinking just keep working at them? Like, you literally ditched school. What was the plan after you went, I'm not here anymore?
No, but they signed. I got from Suzuki and a guy that I was the team owner that I grew up kind of racing his son, and I built up a good relationship with him.
Yeah.
He's still owner of the M4 Suzuki team, like the Suzuki team that's in America now. But he, John Ulrich, he's the editor of Road Racing World Magazine over there. But he like I said, offered me the $40,000 contract to go and race with him.
At 16, you were earning $40,000 a year.
Yeah, and that was just
I would have got out of school. I wouldn't even done the paperwork element to be like, 40 grand, son, right?
Yeah. So that was that was it. I went directly to road racing and took that route. And
how many people?
I ended up getting into a bit of a fucking pickle that year though, because I ended up winning the championship, ended up having like an amazing year, and it was super. I won like, Jesus, I don't know, I think it was like 40, like 50 grand in bonuses. But I ended up, the minute I signed my contract, I bought my mom a Ford Mustang, which she always wanted. So that was the first thing I did, was bought my mom a Ford Mustang. Bought myself a big fuck off like Ford F-150 like pickup truck, which I didn't even have my license yet.
I was about to say, wait.
I was 15 going on 16, so I didn't even have my license yet. But I had.
I bet he didn't just stay on the drive, did he?
I had an older mate that had his license, who was like he had a bad childhood, and he was actually living with me at the time, and so he drove me around and chauffeured me around in my own truck. And so, yeah, we drove that around all year. And then, my mom, not really like knowing herself, but she assumed because I was under the age 18 that I wasn't going to have to pay taxes that year. Unfortunately, at the end of the year, I obviously bought my truck and motocross bikes and, did a bunch of, dumb shit that you do at that age, and
fuck. And then the taxman turned
up and says basically, like in America, then in California, it's basically 48% tax.
Shut up, man.
And so
48. I want half your wages. Give us 20 grand.
Yeah, so
and the rest.
38% 38% federal and then 10% for California.
On your bonuses as well.
Yeah, everything.
So it was 100K
everything,
that
any
year,
income
and you had 50
possible.
grand you had to pay.
Yeah, and so they came and said, basically, we need 50 grand. I was like, and I was like, well, and my mom, unfortunately, she didn't have 50 grand saved up that she could just give me. So by the time I ended up paying that off, like in 4 or 5 years down the road, I ended up paying over $120,000 just in penalties. Like by the time I paid off that tax.
To be fair, they'd do the same to you, wouldn't they? If they turned up and you'd earned it in the UK, they'd say to you, well, you're not setting up a payment plan.
Yeah, no, the IRS and they're nothing to fuck with. They're super bad. And
death and taxes, young'un, the two things.
Yeah, they've put literally career life criminals away that not even the FBI or law enforcement couldn't, like there's a few of them like Al Capone and others that the federal government couldn't lock them away, but the IRS got them.
And that's who turned up at your door when you were 16.
Yeah, saying, and they turned up and so that was a big issue though, because that ended up, because of that, I've been audited like 6-7 times like throughout my entire life now.
Like just continuous because of that one.
Yeah, because
you get a black mark by your name.
Yeah, and so loads of the American riders, like, because no one kind of really, you get all the European riders and the Australian riders, all of them lived in like the tax-free countries,
Switzerland,
the Isle of Man, Switzerland and Andorra and everything. And like I had so many Australian teammates that all lived in all these tax-free countries, and like they'd always be pissed because I always made more money than whatever teammate I had at the time. Like I always had an actual higher basic contract, which they'd always give me shit about. Oh, well, you're making this, or because I'd always be quite cool with my teammates, and like, but when we talk about it and they'd be, oh, you're fucking making more than me and this and that. But at the end of it, they were making way more than what I was, because every year I was always putting away 50% for taxes. So like
that's just massive steep in it as well.
Yeah, and I couldn't screw around. Whereas all the other American riders, they always would put a few $100,000 away in like a Swiss account.
I've never earned $100 grand.
Never. Nice position to be in, isn't it? And they would put a few $100,000 away.
Yeah, and they would always like sneak a few away and be able to kind of easily get away with it, but. The amount of times I was audited, it was just never, because if I would have got caught with that, it would have been over with. So
that must have taken the shine off. You know what I mean? You've bought your mum a Mustang. Thank you very much for everything. You've bought yourself a truck. You know what I mean? I'm 16 with a truck. Like that. At what age did you lose your virginity?
15 in my Ford F-150. Because it was 15. I signed the deal when I was. It was in
the book.
Yeah.
The way you don't react now, that's in the book.
I lost it. Yeah.
When you've read the book, he could tell you anything, and you just sit there and go, nothing would surprise you because it's next level. It's if you haven't read it, you need to read it. Yeah.
So I lost my virginity in that truck, parked out in front of my mate's house, like I was like 15 going on 6, I just turned 16.
Do you know?
How old were you when you smoked your first cigarette that night? Please tell me it's that night.
No, it was just prior to that, 15. So like it was 15. Like I started smoking when I was a couple of them. I smoked weed and cigarettes for the first time at 15, and obviously fell in love with both at that age. And so it was quite bad.
Mate, that is the coolest 15-year-old who's ever crossed the planet. Imagine some bloke who's a plumber, you know what I mean, going in his scrapped out van. There's John Hopkins in his brand new truck, got the woman on his arm and smoking ganja like that guy. It's tough being me.
Yeah, but I used to, and then that was it. Like I literally from the first one, it was just the thing to do in Southern California when you're a young, teenager in Southern California, especially into like the snowboarding and surfing and motocross and everything that I was. Like, it was just the thing you did. You smoked weed all day, every day. So, and I did, except when I went riding. I was riding, I'd go and ride all day and then come home and then I'd smoke weed with my buddies and mates and head out, and all of that. And I never mixed the two though. Like I never actually, I would party, hard and all the drinking and smoking weed and all that. And obviously experimented with the drugs and all that throughout my young teenage life. But when I went away to the races and flew to the races, I was, 100%, like would stay sober until, Saturday night. And then at 6, I'd always have, because you can't drink it in America until you're 21.
21,
so,
yeah, that's the thing. You know what I mean? It's
we died, and it was good because I grew up racing like in the super sport, like when I was racing in America, and our races were always on the Saturday. Like 750 Super Sport and those ones. So like I'd go and win my race, and Saturday night we'd be in the campsites just fucking stealing all the beers, stealing beers out of all the coolers from all the campsites and just get all hammered on Saturday night. And
as they're always like
that's so cool. That's okay. I'm literally sitting here going.
I used to follow a little bit of AMA, and there was obviously like a lot of money in American superbikes back then. It's not as strong now, is it?
No,
because we found there was a lot of Brits that went over. Hodgson went and had a go. The Miguel Duhamel era.
Yeah, exactly.
Aaron Yates,
and that
Mladen.
was, we're talking like, here's a comparison now. So back in those days, in my day and stuff like that, the superbike riders, the average salary was between $800,000 and $2.5 million. All of them were on no less. Like if you were a factory rider, you were on no less than 800,000, and most of them on $1 million plus. Like, and we're talking 12 plus riders.
And all I'm thinking is the taxes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like 800 grand. It's like that's 400. It's still wow. That is incredible.
So that's and it was just insane. And you go fast forward, to even Tony Elias a few years back riding for the Yoshimura Suzuki just before they packed it in.
Yeah.
100 grand he was on, and he was at the time multi AMA champion on the same exact team that was paying 2 riders over $2 million a year, because they Spies and Mladen were both on over $2 million a year, like 2.2 and 2.5.
Because that was like the height of it, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Mladen, Spies, Yates, Semke.
Yeah, exactly. So they were making $2+ million. And
what year did the ass fall out of it completely?
2009.
I'm glad you asked that.
2009,
and it never recovered.
So the economy crashed, and so it's crazy because if in the model of it, basically, because obviously in BSB, like BSB has obviously always been a competitive and great championship and so forth, but there was never the money in BSB that there was there was in the AMA Moto America Championship. And that is purely because of the factory support. Every factory was involved, and U.S. factories had a lot of like clout and everything. So U.S. Kawasaki was just the same as Japanese Kawasaki.
So the money wasn't coming through sponsors and corporate deals. It was coming from manufacturers.
Directly from the manufacturers, and that's what the money was coming from. And so,
which is why when the economy
crashed, and then that was the problem. Like literally, almost every bike manufacturer out there almost went bankrupt because they were churning out like, hundreds of thousands, millions of bikes every year, of sport bikes. Yeah. And then motorcycles literally just became a luxury, not a necessity. And like instantly, and the way that they were churning them out is they were like churning them out and putting them into factories, and then they were just constantly being sold. So even when the economy crashed, that churning out of bikes kept happening, and yet they sold no bikes in America. And they stocked up, and literally they almost went like bankrupt. And then from that point forward, the support just started dribbling out, and like instantly they had no money to pay the riders, the teams, anything. And so what then happened was the private teams came in. Private guys came in, and private owners and so forth came, and then they went to the manufacturers and went, oh, if you just give us like this amount, and then so the manufacturers, oh yeah, we'll give you the bikes. And then and then they started branding it, and then the hospitalities and so forth, and they started bringing in all the same exact look as what they were doing previous. And yet, so they were getting all the same exposure, all of this, but literally paying 20-30 million less.
They basically adopted the UK the way that it's done over here.
Exactly.
Where, manufacturers put the bikes up, but then it's down to the teams to get headline sponsors.
Exactly. And then that adapted, and then that happened, and then it never went back. And then obviously the manufacturers would be insane to, they'd be pretty dumb.
It's business, isn't it?
Because they're getting the exact same exposure and everything as what they were previous, but at almost nothing.
Because even now the depth of field isn't what it was when when you guys and when Spees.
Yeah, but
then AMA.
Yeah, but that also took in account because there was people from NASCAR actually took the championship over and deliberately ran it into the ground because they didn't want it
get the popularity.
Yeah, and they wanted obviously the more popularity to go to NASCAR, and they literally drove it into the ground.
Wow.
In terms of they canceled even TV contracts and everything. There went a few years where it wasn't even on live television.
Proof that car drivers are bellends.
I agree, but they literally just drove it into the ground, and then luckily, over a couple of years later, then Wayne Rainey and the other guy Chuck Asland, who I know really well, took it over, and then obviously started kind of turning it back around, but. Unfortunately, it just hasn't recovered ever since.
Do you reckon it will ever recover?
I don't know.
It's not going to be an overnight job. They take a long time.
They've done a good job over the last few years turning it around, and they have done a great job in terms of what they've done from what it was and starting to turn it around. But now it's all changed because now they've got this bagger class racing, which literally has 3 times the viewership of the superbike class now.
More money in it.
Way more money. I mean, the riders are making they are by far the highest paid riders on average in the whole.
Started out as a bit of fun and a bit of a concept class.
Was it you telling me how much is one of those bikes worth? I think
over $500,000.
Yeah.
Over $500,000.
Sorry, per bike.
Yeah. So they're putting in over $500,000 into the development and into those bikes now. It's insane.
How the
But I think it's going to be really hard to get a championship back to the level that it was at when, you were talking about, at the peak. It's the manufacturers know they don't need to go back to that now. No. The sponsors know they don't need to go back to that.
Exactly.
As you say, the bag of things, it's good. And and
it can only go so far though, because the problem is they're actually transforming the bike so much that it literally, soon's going to look like a super bike with these little boxes on the back, and then that takes away all the
back. Yeah,
it takes away the fun of it.
It's what happens with the evolution of these championships, isn't it? That's exactly what happens with them.
So,
how many people in it, from 2009 onwards, how many people in America are paying for rides? Because over here, a lot. My God, it's what?
Well, you'll have experienced. Well,
most. But in saying that, most do, and they have somewhat adopted that. But it's crazy for as bad a state as the championship is in. There's still riders probably on average they're making more money there than here, which
that's the thing, because
a lot of money in America
baffles me. Yeah. It is a shame, and but you get more. But people are still paying for rides in certain extent, but but more are being paid to ride than. It's nowhere near as what it is here in BSB. Way more people are paying for ride, and in all the other championships like Spanish Championship, Italian Championship. Even us in Grand Prix now in Moto2, everyone's paying for their ride to be there. 70% of the field.
Take out, obviously, we've talked about, the financial implications that, it needs money dragged in to make that work. Take all that bullshit to the side for a second, but do you agree that riders should have to pay?
At this stage, no.
You know what I mean?
I don't think anyone's going to think that riders should pay, because I think any rider that's been there and put the bollocks on the line.
Yeah.
And it depends what level you're at. It depends what level you're at. But in this championship, I don't believe anyone from
in BSB you refer to
BSB and being the biggest and best domestic championship in the world, and the viewership and the money and the sponsors and everything behind it, I don't think
anyone should be paying. Anyone
should be paying, from even the smaller classes, like anyone, at least from 600 Super Sport, Super Stock, Super Bike. I don't think anybody should be. I don't think any of the riders or anyone in the top 10, 15, any one of those should be paying for their ride. They should be being paid for what
it's a full-time occupation.
Because to be at this level and that level and what they're doing, it's a full-time job.
It is.
Like, and you have to put your life into it. You have to put the training into it. You have to put the time away from the track into it if you want to be at that level and to do that, and like I said, the amount of viewership and the entertainment behind it, they should be being paid for
100%.
What they're doing.
But that's like the game we're in at the moment, and it's horrible. It's like, I know Chrissy got in touch with you, to try and get you on, and obviously, times never matched up. But did you get to meet Chrissy?
I didn't get to know him.
Yeah,
I never really got to know him, and as good as but everyone I spoke to, said he was a great bloke, good guy, and I was looking forward to actually really kind of getting to know him.
But like Chrissy had his own, like a lot of people like Gabriel and Phil Krug, they provided the bike, but Chrissy ran everything. Ran his own, like you're talking about dedicating your life into something. Chrissy ran everything, even getting tickets. Him and Grace ran around the whole place, and they were pumping well over 10 grand a round into it, and it was a privateer, and it just, I'm smiling thinking about it now, and it's like Arctic, this studio on the back of a Vivaro in the middle, and he was scoring points, and you just think, how is this not getting, like, the skill set that Chrissy had and the person he was? You're thinking, that just showed everything of how the sport is at the moment. Greatest sport in the world, because we're all biased. It's a motorbike podcast, but it just shows where we are at the moment within motorsport in general. And what annoys me on a personal level is you can almost buy a good ride. You can't buy a good ride now, even if you're not. Like, someone scouted you on the side on a motocross bike in the middle of California, and it was just that sheer skill set that went, we need to get you on a bike. And then that cream naturally, cream rises to the top. It always does. And it does. And it's almost like, if you're getting paid, it almost gets thinned out even more. And you almost, like, if you can pay for a good bike and you're on a shitter bike, but you've got more skill set, that's where we are.
And then you get that motivation. You get the younger kids, if they know, that was the biggest thing, like in America as well, like at that age, because everyone knew, like, that those guys were getting paid millions of dollars, and they were rocking up in their fucking Ferraris and their whatever.
That's so cool.
Lamborghinis and cars like that, and you're like, fuck, I want that.
Something to aim for.
And that just it only drives you even more and more and more. And then, just like any other sport, like kids here in football, in European soccer football, and same in American football and baseball and stuff like that. That's why you get the millions of kids, and the only best elite ever making it to that point. Like you said, the cream rises to the top, and you only get that aspiration and that motivation from children at a young age to do that when they're they know they can make an amazing living at it.
And they do know from the word go, like those NFL players are on telephone numbers, aren't they? They're on ridiculous money to play American football.
I mean,
and the kids know that, don't they? From being 4 or 5, they're like, this dude's a gazillionaire.
And they know football. That's where you get the best of the best of the best. And I'm conflicted on it, but I've always said it. There has to come a point in time now, because I've just seen it drain and drain and drain and drain and drain, and literally the only people that are literally making anything remotely close to the same money that they used to back in my era, and even way before in the 90s and 80s and so forth, is literally the top 10 in MotoGP. Top 5 is the only ones on those same similar kind of numbers, and that is it.
Because there's still riders in MotoGP paying for their seats,
That's mental,
which is nuts, isn't it? Just to qualify on a MotoGP grid and be within that time, you should be getting paid.
And
you are at the pinnacle of motorsport. Same in F1 though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. They're all like paying for drives. And
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. You get a billionaire going, I want my son in that, and it's like, well, arguably in the sense of skill, like passion and drive, you shouldn't have that seat. It's just like, I want to have a crack at it, but
the amount of money that the manufacturers make and the money that they have, I believe, like, I've said it, and like I said, I'm conflicted because obviously, like, being on the management side of the team and stuff now, like, I understand, and then obviously, like, seeing it firsthand, riding with the Motor Rapido team here, like, I only knew they were a smaller team, and, I saw the effort and the amount of, like, money and stuff that they would put out of their pocket just for us to be at every race weekend, so I understand that side of it. It makes it that much more difficult, but that's where the manufacturers need to step in, and I said it from, like, for years now, I've said it, like, there needs to be almost a boycott from the racers. Like, they did it in American baseball. So they did this in American baseball, and all of the pro players, because you got hundreds and hundreds of players, and their schedule in American baseball, as much as I hate the sport, like they are busy. Like, they do a hell of a lot of rounds, and they literally have hundreds of players on each, like, on the teams that don't play, and they're reserve players, and yet they still have to go to every single round. They have to go to every training session. They have to fly to every
just to sit on the bench,
and then they sit on the bench. But the problem is they're away from their family, and yet back in the day, those players weren't getting paid, and they were getting paid next to nothing. Right. And yet they still had to go and had to attend every round and do all of the stuff and all the games and everything. So they couldn't even provide for their own families. So it took the entire baseball community to do it, but they did it, and they finally got a boycott. And we're talking the ones that were taking hundreds of millions and so forth even got involved and said, like, look, this isn't fair.
They have to though, don't they? It doesn't work. Because if you're not unified, it's a waste of time, isn't it? They need almost a riders' union, together, don't they?
And they took it away, and they did a boycott, and then Major League Baseball went, you know what, fucking, like, we're bigger than them, we'll carry on. And so they tried. They brought in replacement players from, like university, like old retired players, and just anyone. They brought in anyone that could play. No one watched the games. That was it. Like, the viewership went because people wanted to see their heroes and the ones they aspire and look up to on the field, not some Joe Blow, whoever. And so and they did. They ended up working a deal with the players, and from that point forward, no one on the grid could make, or no one on the field, or if you were signed to a professional team, you could make no less than 100,000, and then yet the others could make in however much they wanted, but no one signed to a professional baseball team from that point forward could be paid less than 100,000, and then insurance and medical insurance and all the rest of it. And, like, I've said it from day one, but, like, there needs to be something happen like that, especially in, like, this championship. And they because as big as the sport is here in the UK, like, and the manufacturers, and I know how little of support the manufacturers put into this championship. And, like, I think every team needs to do a full-blown absolute boycott and be with the championship involved, and just say, look, until, like, we actually start getting the support that we deserve, all bikes should be blacked out, and no manufacturer should even be, like, listed onto the side of the bike.
Well, it shouldn't even stop there, though. People buying bikes, people buying sports bikes. It's like, well, actually, people go buy a sports bike because they see it racing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's actually, if we stop buying, they'll see the profits go down and go, why are they doing this? Yeah. This is the reason why. We're starting a coup, gentlemen. Loving it.
Were you, and I hope it's not an inappropriate question, but when you were racing in the British Championship, was there prize money then or not?
No. There was no prize money. Like, prize money here. I mean, I think the team did get prize money and stuff like that. But, like, no, I never got any.
Because that always blows my mind. Those boys that have just been going around there in the pissing rain around Brands GP.
Risking the life.
Yeah, absolutely. Putting the show on. And they're getting their basic, but they don't get prize money. No. It blows my mind that every time. And
it's just basically contract. Like, some riders have bonuses. I always had bonuses in my contract for podium and, finishes like that. But, like, the fact that the championship doesn't put up like prize money is quite shocking to me.
But it's always going to be a difficult thing, because the one thing we're always going to get preyed on is the passion, isn't it? We want to race bikes. That's the problem. And you know what I mean? We all want to be champion, and we all want like...
But that's where the backbone comes into it, of saying, do you know what, guys? We all do it together. We all do, none of us are turning up to the next round. We all stay at home, and we all agreed on that.
But that's the difficult thing.
And it's hard, isn't it?
But until it gets exercised, you're not going to know.
But it's so hard, because you're going to get the motorcycle race, you're going to get that finite 4 or 5 in the championship that are all making,
the money,
decent, handsome money that have worked and gone through all that period of not making any money, especially in this championship, that gone through all those years and hardship of paying for rides and all of that. So they're like, fuck, no, I ain't going to jeopardize this. That's
the thing, isn't it?
And that's why it's just going to be so difficult to ever get everyone on board to do something like that. But I mean, I believe it should happen, because and at the end of the day, that's not on the team. It's not on the championship. It's on the manufacturers. The manufacturers do need to step up. It just baffles me
you're going to be in a boardroom in about 2 weeks' time with all those BSB boys looking at you going, right, how do we do this then, John?
Yeah.
You with a whiteboard and a pointer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the way to do it. Let's go. I was about to say, I want to go back. Let's go back to truck and John, you know what I mean? You're racing, and it's just was that just the forward momentum? And let's just carry on that story. Let's carry on that. I'm in a good place. Unfortunately, got taxed to a living hilt. You know what I mean? You had all this money back. What was the next part of that story for you then? What was the next stage?
So basically, I won 2 championships back to back in America. I won the 750 Super Sport Championship that first year. And then I won the Formula Extreme Championship the following year, and I was also racing 600 Supersport the second year, which was cool, because 600 Supersport back in my day as well, that was the other thing in America. So if you were an American superbike rider, you also, apart from the only one that I know was, I think it was Matt Mladen, just because he was multi-champion at the time.
Did he win 8 or 9 or something?
Yeah, I don't know. It was 6 plus. I don't know how many I had, but he was the only rider, apart from maybe one other. But if you raced American Superbike, you had to race 600 Supersport.
I think that's mega.
So that you had to do both in the same weekend. And on the same day, if you race Superbike, you also, and we're with the factory team, you also had to race 600 Supersport.
It's very TT, isn't it?
Yeah. But it was a super cool class for me, because I obviously got to race against all of the factory Superbike riders within 600 Supersport. It was a stacked class. So that was a good year for me to obviously progress. And I did quite well. I'm not sure. I think I did. I think I may have gone on the podium once, twice that year, but I was always up in the battle towards the front and riding with the factory guys. But I then, because of the relationship, the team owner at the time, John Ulrich, he had a very close relationship with the guy Peter Clifford, who owned was team owner manager of the Red Bull Yamaha team in MotoGP. And so I went over and they had me test the bike when I was 17, and I rode it first time in Brno, and it was crazy. I was 16, 17, and I rode it.
I'm just thinking, if you got a boner on an RS125, what was it like on a 500 Grand Prix bike?
No, but I was literally...
Where did that dig in the tank come from, John?
I was literally shitting myself, because I was on track with all of the Grand Prix riders at the time, because it was a Monday test right after the Grand Prix, because a lot of the GP teams, we still do it today. They ended up testing on the Monday right after the Grand Prix. So I went there for the Grand Prix, and then obviously tested on the Monday. And so I was on track with all the other then,
Who was in there then? Biaggi?
Biaggi, Barros, Checa, Kenny Roberts, Jr. and I think was Mick riding that. I think he had just Crebier and all
Gary
of those
McCoy?
guys.
Was he
Gary McCoy was, and all of those guys.
Jesus, wet.
And Tetsuya Harada and Norik Abe and all of those guys. But it was funny. I was like, fuck. I didn't want to high side the thing, but I ended up going.
They're called the high siders, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to high side. It's pretty obvious.
But so yeah, and I mean, I was only like 16, and so I went out and rode, and I ended up I was quite nervous, and like I ended up getting into. It was Tetsuya Harada like came around, and it was like fucking first of like I don't know 2 or 3 laps, and like ended up like getting in the way of Tetsuya Harada, and he like came by and was like fucking waving his hands at me. I'm like, sorry, fuck. Like, but I ended up going like decent and quite well. That and only did like a one day. It was kind of like I thought it was kind of like a thank you from my team manager, like because of the relationship. I thought it was kind of more of a thank you, for winning the championship the previous year, and what it was is basically kind of a test,
a bit of a scout.
Yeah, a bit of a scout, and then I did a couple more that year, but. So at the end of that year, I'd won another championship again, 2 for Suzuki back to back. And then, the ultimate, like the next step would be from that point to go to Superbike. And so what I did, was I intended to go to AMA Superbike from that point, but I loved Suzuki. Suzuki were my favorite manufacturer. I only wanted to ride for Yoshimura Suzuki. And I literally had a contract on the table for every single Superbike team and manufacturer for the following season except Yoshimura Suzuki. Because at the time, there was a guy that ran Yoshimura Suzuki. His name was Mal Harris. He was this fat, kind of just disgusting guy that just, and he just, it pissed me off. But he didn't like me because I had the earrings, I had the tattoos, and like I was, had like the bad boy image at the young age. And
he wanted the straight-laced cop.
Yeah, and he didn't like me. So wow. It was because of that reason that I said, fuck you. And fuck it. I'll go to Grand Prix. Like I'm going to do it.
So they offered you the Grand Prix ride came at the same time then?
Yeah. So, and then that offer was on the table, but I was literally going to turn it down to go to Superbike to do that next level.
Yeah.
Even though I was up in the air, I probably would have chosen the Yoshimura Suzuki deal if it was on the table, but it wasn't. So I just said, fuck it, I'll go to Grand Prix. And
was that quite an angry decision as well? It's like, I can't believe haven't been offered. I'm off.
Yeah.
It's quite, the pattern's quite there, isn't it? You know what I mean?
That was my rebellious side. Like, that was my rebellious side that you said, you know what, fuck it, I will do it. Like, I can do it. And fuck you.
So then. I'm going to do it.
And then
anyone who signs him in the future, even in the managerial role, don't send him anything. Why? Don't send him anything. Knocking on the door, right?
Yeah. So that was my rebellious side, and I did it, and I gave it everything, and ended up being quite a successful year. I mean, I ended up doing quite well that year.
2002.
So 2002, it was the final year, and it was a shame, but it was like the highlight of like my entire career, because I always grew up like once I got that boner on the RS like 25. I started watching road racing Grand Prix a hell of a lot more. Like I just started then I kind of switched my my motivation and dreams to being a Grand Prix star, and obviously watching Schwantz and Rainey and all of the Grand Prix stars of that time, and then so and the sound and the like just fucking
how hard
everything
were they to
about
ride?
the super hard.
Yeah,
like they were,
because the early ones that doing in Schwantz Road, they were called doing rideables, weren't they? Would you still class that as the that was 100%. Definitely
like
they didn't refine it.
They were just and I think my motocross experience really kind of helped with it, like with adapting to it and everything.
Coming out the seat every 2 seconds.
Yeah, out of the seat, and the power band and the way that it was. Like, I mean, it was a fucking beast monster of a bike, like to try, and I had some fucking massive high sides that year, like massive fucking and multiple that year.
Would you rather hop on a modern MotoGP bike now compared to that?
I just to see what the technology is, but I mean it's a hard one. Even if I did, it was just for the curiosity of to feel what the modern MotoGP bike was like. But like it still wouldn't take away that a 500 two-stroke are still my ultimate like idol of a bike.
It's it doesn't matter what generation you are. That's a man's bike.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you had a 1200 on your a jet engine. It's like 500. Every bloke in the world goes like this. Just, good lad.
But the other thing's the smell and the passion.
Yeah,
like,
the
I
smell
love
and the
two-strokes
sound and the power band and that smell of the oil and the mixture and
that
the
noise
premix.
as well. 500s really just wang ding.
Yeah,
and you got
a power
a little
band
pop
sound.
on them.
a bloke with a box of needles for the carbs.
Yeah.
Right, son, half a jet going.
Even kids now though that don't understand. It's like, why does that smell nice, Daddy? It's like,
Yeah,
'cause that's a proper motorbike.
Yeah, because that's what
we're not allowed to make them anymore because there's someone hugging trees somewhere. And apparently we're the ones causing the problem, but that's a proper motorbike.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, no,
like,
bring 'em
it's
back.
amazing.
Bring back two-strokes.
It was good. Yeah, it was. Oh yeah, just to be able to race that, and it was a bike that not everyone could ride. Like there were multiple people that came from other championships and Superbike and World Superbike, throughout all the years, like had come over and were expected to do extremely well on the Grand Prix, and they just couldn't do it. They just.
Do you think that's because it was a two-stroke? Because of what it was?
Of everything about it, and the way and the technique and it's a different beast to any other bike that I've ever ridden in my life. Like it had to be ridden and finessed and yet fucking manhandled but finessed, and it was a crazy bike.
It's like having a really pretty Russian bird.
Yeah, that's right.
Just constantly keeping her happy just in case she does decide just to fucking shoot you.
Yeah, exactly. We don't really understand her, but
looks mega though.
Yeah,
but you're always a little bit nervous around her.
A little nervous around it. But
standard.
Yeah,
Just
a KGB coming to my house then.
Yeah, exactly.
Easy. But at this point, before you got on that bike, the 500, did you I've referred to them as slaps. We've all had them as motorcycle races, like big crashes, and you just know when you're up in the air, the second you land, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
Did you have many big slaps throughout your career before getting on a bike that is guaranteed to give you a slap?
Yeah, I had a few big high sides, but I mean, biggest one, fast forward a few years, speaking about that, you literally just brought it all back in vision into my head,
Sorry.
And the thought. But I had a bad one. I because back in my day as well, the medical attention that you received was way different to what it is today.
Yeah.
But I ended up having a crash in Sachsenring, Germany. I think it was 05. Ended up having a big crash on the Friday. Had a huge high side. I ended up crashing, so I broke my left ankle, broke my ankle. Ended up I fucking shattered all my teeth out, so all my teeth are fake because I broke I slid through had a huge high side. Ended up breaking my ankle. Oh yeah, I broke 3 ribs. That was it. I fractured 3 ribs. And I was like, fuck it, I'm still going to race on
with
Sunday.
No teeth.
And
It's the teeth
yeah,
thing
no
makes
teeth.
me cringe.
Because I went backwards. I slid backwards through the feet first into the gravel trap. And my helmet was like a scoop. And all the little rocks just shattered all my teeth out. And I had broken teeth, half teeth, it was just it was horrendous. And I've always been quite funny with teeth,
because
did you have any exposed nerves? Because
it was so painful.
I crashed a BMX as a kid, and I went over the bars and I had braces on.
Yeah.
And my face, the first thing that hit the corner of the curb was my mouth.
Yeah.
And it knocked that's why my teeth are trash, because they couldn't finish doing the braces and the wire came through my lips, and I had exposed nerves.
Yeah.
And as soon as you said teeth, then it's
painful. So painful.
Did you do a gum shield before you raced?
That was because after that I did.
Yeah.
So from that point forward,
I put a gum shield in.
I had a gum shield.
Because the only rider I've ever seen with a gum shield in.
Yeah, so always from that point, plus this fucking cost me $40,000. So I was like, there's no way I'm doing that shit again. So I was like, fuck that. I'm not paying that again. So ever since then. And I still have the same. I wore the same gum shield like my entire fucking career for the next 15 years, like with the same gum shield. But it was crazy. So I did that on the Friday. And I rode the bare minimum on the Saturday, and I was like fucking still in quite a bit of pain. And then Sunday morning, I was like, fuck it. Like at the time back then, you could get cortisone shots, which literally like numbed you, like, and you didn't feel any pain. So I was like, fuck it, I'll race. Like, I felt like I could still do quite well in the race. So I had cortisone shots all in my legs. So, anyways, biggest problem, I couldn't feel my foot. Like, I didn't know. I'd never had them before at that point prior. So, yeah, I literally just could not. I just thought it took away the pain and, would help that out.
And that's your
bit of a nerve block.
So
that's your left, so shifting gear. Yeah.
And I just couldn't feel it whatsoever and got off to a decent start. And, like, my ribs still hurt like hell, but I was always quite good in my life. Like, adrenaline was always good at taken away all my pain like instantly, and so I got off and actually had like a good start to the race going. I was fighting with my teammate, doing quite well, and fucking at Saxon, I come out of turn one, it's real tight, like fucking I don't know, it's first, second, you go first, second gear, and then it's a fully cranked over full lean angle. Second gear wide open, like on the limiter. You bop, 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 bop on the limiter. And I was on the limiter, second gear, couldn't feel my foot obviously, and I just ended up like dropping onto the shifter. So full lean angle on the limiter and shifted into third at fucking full lean angle, and it just went whoosh, sent me sideways and fucking flicked me. It's all on YouTube. Like
there's that upside down.
Yeah, and I do a full front flip in the air. But what fucking most people don't know is I literally have 3 fucking broken
ribs.
Like 3 broken ribs from Friday and a broken ankle and fucking no teeth. And I'm literally flipping through the air.
Was it one of those where you were in the air and you
I
had
was
time
like,
to think?
the whole time. Yeah. It was the slowest fucking crash of my life. And I'm like praying to pass out. Like I'm praying, just fucking please, like pass out. And then and like instant, I swear everything went through my head. Like while I was flipping, I was like, fucking hell, I've already got fractured ribs. One of them's going to go straight through my lungs. Like, yeah. I knew how hard the impact was going to be. And like, I was thinking of this the entire time I was
think
flipping.
Of so much stuff.
Yeah. In a split second.
Yeah.
And it didn't, I obviously didn't pass out, and I just landed and all the air out of me just like, and so I land and I'm so stiff because I can't breathe, and like I couldn't breathe for like a good 1-2 minutes. I was like, like just fucking, it was horrendous. And yeah, that was a bad night because it was that night as well. I was at the hotel, I'd been away in Europe like I had done all the previous years. I'd been in Europe for the whole year, and like that was the start of our summer break, and I was obviously on my way and flying home the next day, and my sister called me that night to tell me my dog of 15 years, like who was like pit bull Winston, ended up passing away that night. So I was like, that was like, and there's certain cases like that throughout my whole life. Like when it rains, it fucking pours.
You were fed a full shit sandwich.
Yeah,
a whole lot.
Like when it rains, it fucking pours. Yeah. Like, and there's been a lot of instances like that in my life.
You know, the mad thing, like, you know, if you're not a dog owner or, you know, a pet owner, you don't realize when you're absolutely banged up to the living hilt, you do want to go home and see your dog.
Yeah,
you do. You know, dog owners, you know what I mean? And you just want to go home, like, and just scan, where's my dog?
Yeah.
And
people who don't have a dog don't understand that.
No, they don't. And you just say,
no, I mean, I've always been a dog lover, and we've had them my whole lives. And like, I've even got my latest one tattooed on me on my chest, like on my rib cage here. Like my little nugget. But yeah, I mean, they are family. Like they're literally family.
100%.
Like they are 100% family.
You up and told you lost your dog.
After all of that, and I was like, I was.
Do you wish you'd waited till you got home, or are you glad she told you there and then?
No.
Would you have rather known or not?
Good question. That's a very good question.
Like, I don't know.
What about you? If you were lying there,
mate.
like John, would you, what
But
would
I'll
that
tell
cost
you
for
what, I got fucking wasted that night. I got absolutely fucking obliterated.
I'm emotionally retarded until it comes to dogs. Honestly, genuinely, I can sit on Instagram and go through horrific things. Whether it's good or bad, if it's got a dog in it, fuck, I'm gone. Dogs. I don't know why dogs just sit in there.
I love dogs, and they've always, they've always been really good with dogs, and they've been good with me. It's apart from one fucking experience, I was talking about this just recently. Like I had these dogs in my neighborhood, and I've always like loved dogs, and I never did anything to ever hurt like animals, but apart from one time than that as well. But like I love I can't even kill, like, fucking, even though I go on a motorcycle, I kill millions of them, but I don't even kill insects. Like I can't
fly out the window, you'd rather flick out the window.
Bees, flies, anything. I will always, like,
give it a
even
chance.
spiders, even like fucking the black widows and deadly spiders and things that we get in America. Like if I have one in the house, I'll trap it, get it, and I'll release it outside. Like whether that's any insect, even mosquitoes, like I'll fucking do that. Like
I draw the line at mosquitoes. Kill them fuckers.
Trust me, if they bite me, I'll say fuck it. Like if they,
the rules go out the window.
I'm like, fuck it. Like you chose to bite me.
Bite my
you
fingertip.
Started it. And but no, I had a funny instance with the dogs. So like they were I don't even know what they are. They're like the brown. They're like almost like Dobermans. Like they're big dogs and they're brown with like whitish gray spots. I don't even know what the type they are. But they're kind of like Dobermans, bigger, real skinny, lean dogs, but they're fucking big.
Like
not
white, like Weimaramas.
Yeah. They're like quite like skinnier dogs. They're not like a Rottweiler, but they're like brown, short-haired dogs with like white spots. I'll have to look up.
We'll have to have a look at that later on. We'll get Grace to try and pop them. They're quite big, and they've got fucking
floppy ears or pointy ears.
Like pointy ears, and they're quite big, and they've got sharp teeth, big noses.
Yeah.
And they look like quite vicious dogs, but anyways, they're from the Doberman family. But anyways, there used to be these like two dogs that were in the end of my street, and they were always in their like chain link fence. But like every fucking day I rode my bicycle around the neighborhood and I'd ride out. They'd always attack the fence and fucking bark at me like crazy. And so, I started antagonizing them a little bit. Like I would walk by and like I'd like fucking, yell in their face or say something or just, do stupid shit like that. I was being just a dumb little kid. And anyways, I went there, was riding by one day and they came by and like I went over to just go and antagonize them even more and like piss them off. Go over, I look, and fucking the gates open. The gates fucking left wide open for the first time ever that I've ever seen it.
And at this point, John knew.
And I'm like, fuck! And so like I fucking started to like pedal. Never pedaled so hard in my life. And I fucking came up and he fucking bit me right on the like side of my thigh. And like, it drew like massive blood. Like it was a fucking bad bite as well. And I was a fucking cheeky little shit, so I deserved it. So
that's class. I wonder if the dogs ever just sat there and remember that time the gate was over. That was mint crack.
Yeah, but no,
he had it coming.
My mum and dad were actually like quite really pissed off about it, and like but they never did anything. Like, we never did anything about it, just for fear of because dogs can get put down for that. And even I at that age was the last thing I ever wanted. So we never complained about it or went to like my dad had a bit of a go at for leaving the gate open, but
always surprises you how fast a dog can run, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
You think you're quick, and then one of them bastard pulls the pin, you're like, oh my god,
it's over.
Yeah,
it's over at that
I couldn't
point.
outrun that, but but ever since then, like I said, I was a fucking scary experience, but again, a teaching moment,
a little
like
bit of a learning shot.
Learning.
Love it.
But I love dogs, always did. But that was a rough year. But going back, we'll switch back. I wanted to tell you this story as well. In the Grand Prix. So I obviously, when I made the decision to go to Grand Prix and go to MotoGP and everything, I had zero support from the American, like, superbike riders. Like, everyone, like, apart from Doug Chandler, who had done it, he was like, oh, like, he's a good rider, and I raced a lot with him in the 600 Supersport class. He was quite supportive and like, yeah, like, he can do well, blah, blah, blah. Biggest one was fucking Matt Mladen. Like, he absolutely fucking, like, just slated me in the press, saying how, like, big of a joke I was going to be. I was going to be shit. I was going to be terrible. Like, I was
jealousy.
It's just bad apples.
I was going to make a fucking fool of myself and, like, the American riders and all this shit. And I, you know, obviously I fucking didn't know much about his early career, but he had done the same thing. He had went, I guess, to Grand Prix quite young at his age, at, you know, 18 or 19 or whatever, and did shit fucking terrible. So he had went and gone terrible. And obviously, you know, he was sure that I was going to do exactly the same as him.
Probably hoping you were going to do the same.
Yeah, no, and he was. He was hoping that I was going to be shit. And so that just even gave me even, and it was good. I wanted that. Like, that gave me a chip on my shoulder to even, you know, go out and succeed more. Like, that just gave me that drive to, you know what, say fuck you. And
common thing throughout your career.
It is, isn't it? You know what I mean? That rebellion, like, get fucking, like, that's brilliant.
I always had a, like, chip on my shoulder.
Yeah, good.
And so they, anyway, fast forward at the end of the year, I ended up doing well enough. Unfortunately, Red Bull Yamaha were closing down at the end of that year. I had to find another ride.
And what age were you at this? Like, when you were...
I was 17 going on 18, so 18 to 19.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
18 to 19.
Not even a drinking age. You're jumping from team to team, still professional, doing all this class. Carry on, sorry. Yeah, Red Bull.
So 18 to 19. And obviously, so I had to find a new ride in Grand Prix, and I obviously went and did well enough to that teams noticed me, and it was fucking awesome because I got the opportunity. I had a few actual opportunities from Yamaha, from like a satellite Honda team. The factory Suzuki came to me and offered me a contract to sign with their MotoGP team. And like, fucking to be able to do that, because Suzuki was always my like favorite bike growing up and like my best manufacturer that I always wanted to ride for. So to be able to just fucking instantly like just leapfrog the American Suzuki, fucking Mel Harris, Matt Mladen, and all of those guys was just so fucking awesome. And what made it even better.
That's what this episode would be called, the bird.
we were at the first ever test in Malaysia. So I rode it for the first time in Malaysia at the start of the year. We were at a preseason test at the Malaysia track, and so we're riding, and it ended up being a full Suzuki test. So Suzuki had actually hired the track, and then they brought all of their, and it was something they did quite regularly back then, but they brought all of their Suzuki riders that were factory supported from all the different championships, from, you know, American Suzuki, World Superbike,
British
Endurance Championship. I think maybe it wasn't fully factory supported at that time, so the British weren't. But they get their World Endurance, like their Suzuka team, the World Superbike, and the American Superbike. And so obviously I was out on track with and I built up a good friendship at that time with Spee. So it was good, like, having him over and, you know, spending him, you know, riding with him. But it was so fucking cool because it worked out almost perfect. Turn 3 at Malaysia is basically like you go from like second to like fifth gear throughout the entire turn 3, and you fucking just light the fuck up out of the rear tire, like all the way through there. And it was like the second day. It was on the second day, towards the end of the second day. I could see him ahead of me, and it worked out perfect. I was catching up to Mladen, and I had caught him, and it worked out perfectly that where I passed him was right into turn, like coming on like midway through turn 3. So I went around the outside of him in this like fourth gear, like spinning, wide open with smoke pouring out of the back, and passed him, and just fucking instantly put my finger in the air and flipped him off as I passed him with smoke just pouring out of the back. That was like just like the most gratifying, like, you know, biggest fuck you moment. Like that was just such a great feeling to be able to do that. And the coolest thing about it as well is they actually gave him as a present for winning the championship that previous year. They gave him the whole day on the GSVR MotoGP bike the following day. And he didn't get fucking remote. And I was on it for the first time in my life, like that weekend.
That'd be your first time on a four-stroke. On the
four-stroke as well. Four-stroke MotoGP bike.
Whoa.
And like I absolutely fucking obliterated his lap times. So
perfect.
Like it was just that was.
Sometimes it's nice to let your talking happen on the track.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't get drawn in. Just stick a result in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a good like moment, but
that's also the point that usually, as you do that, you do too much of that and then give yourself a massive eyesight. And then you have to go back to the team and explain what happened.
But I did that. I did that one year in Phillip Island. We were testing at Phillip Island, and it was like, because you come out of the second to last turn, which is like a really quite tight opening up left-hander, and then it like you just carry on turning into pit lane.
Yeah.
And I came out of there one lap, and I was on an in lap, and like there were like loads of people on the track at the four-stroke because you could just spin them, and you left the coolest fucking like black line darkies like that you could ever see like on those things back then. And I wanted to leave one all the way into pit lane. That was my intention. Like I wanted to leave because there were a few that got close, but I wanted to leave one all the way in to the pit lane.
Yeah.
And
nearly to the 60 bar.
Yeah, and that was like my intention. And it went horribly wrong. It ended up like going way too far to the point of no return, ended up having a massive fucking high side. And then the team came in, and like I was gonna flag it and say like, oh yeah, it was a fucking high side, and then they obviously knew on the data like and exactly.
Why were you full throttle in second gear if you were coming into the pits?
So there was that. I tried to flag it at first, and then the crew chief came to me and said, "This looks a bit strange," and then I had to come clean and tell him. Like,
are they all right?
Yeah.
What was
right.
it? Yeah,
they were all right.
They've got to know, right? We've got lads here, the motorbike racers. There's a little bit of a screw, just slightly loose, and some of the mapping's not quite right. They're going to do crazy things now and again.
But they at the time they knew who they were dealing with. So
you could not get away
I'd
with
already
that now.
been on like loads of trouble and things and fines, and so I mean they knew who they were dealing with. So I mean they weren't happy about it, but I mean there were no like repercussions or anything.
How many years did you do with that Suzuki squad? Was it 3 years?
No.
Before Kawasaki?
I was with them 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 5 years with the Suzuki MotoGP.
Bloody hell. Right, so that was part 1, episode 1. We're not sure how we're going to do this because it's the actual first time on Chasin the Racing that we've separated up a programme. So that was nearly collectively 4 hours of John Hopkins. So we've come to the decision, me and Grace, have come to the decision that we're going to break it up in 2 parts even. So the next one is coming out very, very soon in the next couple of weeks or a week. You can tell we're still trying to figure this out while I'm talking to you a lot. And please leave some comments at the bottom of the YouTube element. Become a patron, get your feedback more direct in between the episodes. This is all an experiment, but I'm really looking forward to you all listening to the second part of this episode. It just gets better and better, like a glass of wine. But hey, please leave a comment, hit like, hit subscribe, do what you have to do. That'd be fantastic, and we'll catch up with you soon. See you in a bit, guys.
Chasin the Racing. Powered by Colchester Kawasaki, part of the Global Moto Group. We supply new Aprilia, Moto Guzzi, Vespa, Royal Enfield, Kawasaki, Sim, Mutt and Benelli motorcycles.